Hello Battletech enthusiasts. Here I have used acetone to soak some mechs I bought on eBay. There's this Atlas and a Wolverine, but I'm going to paint the Atlas with Davion colors. That is actually just a yellow desert camouflage. First I have to remove the old paint job. So as you can see here, I am using a wire brush after soaking in acetone for 2 days. You have to be careful. This happens to be a single piece casting, so a wire brush works fine after acetone soak. If your piece is glued together, because it's made out of several pieces, then the acetone will often cause the glue to break apart, in which case you would do this on each individual piece, and then you would re-glue them together afterwards. As you can see, this Atlas is quite stubborn. I'm actually a little bit worried of breaking off its little searchlight on its head, but it's fine. Then I'm putting it back into the acetone, you can see, and now I'm able to get the last bits of paint off. And finally, it's getting better, and I can now start painting it. Just be careful when you do this acetone stripping step. Make sure you have practiced first on a simple mech, like a single piece mech, like an Atlas. Okay, now I've mounted on the base. You can see I've glued it on. I'm using this Citadel grip. You could also use a wine cork and some hot glue, but some like glue stick to melt it on. Now I'm going to use a little bit of this surface primer, and I'm actually going to thin it just as if it was a paint. This is so that with about equal pints of water and primer, I'm then just going to paint the mech. This is a fairly large brush that I'm using. This is like a number 5 because I'm just trying to get mass coverage quickly. And you notice that I'm not trying to put a heavy color on the mech. I'm just trying to coat all the metal surfaces. There is still a little bit of residue of paint from the previous paint job. That's going to get covered up and it won't be seen after this is all done. So anyway, the purpose of the primer is not to give the mech a color. It's to just give an adhesion layer for paint so it doesn't fall off the metal or the or plastic or whatever you are priming. Although I prefer metal miniatures because you can use harsh chemicals to strip them, whereas a plastic wire brush and acetone would probably destroy it. So anyway, now I have successfully primed it, and I've also let it dry. And so now I'm going to start painting. This is a base coat. First, I'm going to start with Plague Brown. So again, I'm using a dropper bottle. I'm squirting out a little bit, and then I'm going to add about an equal volume in water. And I'm going to use the back end of the paintbrush. I have a little paper towel for wiping. I'm now just going to quickly apply a base coat over the entire mech. Now, there are parts of the mech that I won't paint intentionally, such as the weapons, because I know I'm going to paint those other colors later. But pretty much everything else I'm mostly going to paint with this, like the hands, the back, the head, everything. And it's going to not look that good right now because the Plague Brown by itself does not make that good of a look. But after it has its other colors, and also it's been washed with the Agrax Earthshade, then it starts looking like a nice camouflage color, like a desert camo. So anyway, here I'm doing the little completion of the initial color. Okay, now it's time to put the black undercoats down. So these I'm going to put on the missile packs as well as the weapons and the lasers and the AC-20. So first I put a little bit of black down, and I'm adding a little bit of about equal volume of water, and I'm stirring it again with the back of the brush. I clean it off. Now I'm again tip 1/3 of the brush. I'm putting the black on it. I washed it a little bit there, redoing it. This is now thinned, and you can see that I'm putting it on the AC-20. And I'll put it on the back in the ammo box too, or whatever that is. Then I will put it on this the missile pack on the hip, and there's the front faces of the missile launchers. That will later be coated with gunmetal and other colorants. So for now, just make it black. Also, I'm going to do the eyes. Now, I'm using a fairly crude brush here because this is an undercoat. It doesn't need to be fine. I'm just giving myself a marker for the future so I know what parts are going to be gunmetal color. So this doesn't have to be done very well. So I just put these things down. And then now here's the coolant port. And finally, I'm now going to touch the arm-mounted lasers. And there you go. Again, you do not need a very high quality brush for this, and you do not need to do a fine work because it's more of a marker. Later on, as I do the camo, I also touch the illuminator on the head, even though it's kind of bent out of shape. And here's the back lasers, the medium lasers in the back. And the back of the AC-20, which is also in the missile pack. Okay, there you go. And that's it for this step. And now we're going to add the khaki. I'm going to paint it as a spiral running up the legs and back torso, front torso, and then starting new spirals at the hands and running up the shoulders and possibly having them join or whatnot to create a camouflage pattern. I'm going to make this a fairly coarse spiral because the Atlas is a big mech, so the spiral is going to be pretty wide and coarse. However, you notice I did not thin the khaki paint very much. That's because if you thin it, it'll run too much and you won't be able to create a camo pattern. So the initial plague brown was watered down so that it could fill the cracks. But this khaki is now being intentionally not thinned. As here I'm going through the back. There isn't much contrast between the khaki and the plague brown, but we'll fix that later. That's what the charred brown will be. It'll be a contrast enhancement. So anyway, I'm just going to do this, and later on the wash that we're going to use is going to change the appearance considerably, and also the charred brown will also change the appearance considerably. But for now, I'm just adding these spirals and completing it here. You are seeing, I'm trying to make you see as many of the brush strokes as possible so that you see the whole painting procedure. But I may have to edit out some of it. Now the paint has dried, so I'm now going to touch up the black regions with gunmetal. So again, I'm going to water down the gunmetal 1:1 roughly. You can see it not being very accurate. And I'm stirring it with the back end of my brush. I'm now brushing it on. Since it's been watered down slightly, it's been thinned, it runs, and it also creates this interesting effect when it has black under it, in that it looks like a dark steel. And it really looks like, if you look at it pretty closely, it does look pretty nice with the black undercoat. If you make it too heavy, then of course it just looks like gunmetal, which is nothing wrong. And the missile packs will tend to have black holes, even without washing with this technique. So anyway, we're now going through and touching up all the weapons and also LRM missile pack front surfaces. And again, I'm trying to show you as many of the brush strokes as possible. Okay, now I'm going to quickly show you how to do the final step on the camo, which is adding the brown edges. I'm using a nice brush this time, one of the Series 7 brushes, but I'm going to make sure I also have this kind of low quality brush too as a backup. Now I'm going to make sure that I don't actually thin the paint this time, because if you thin it, you're definitely not going to be able to make lines. Oops, I got too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to suck some of the paint back in. I'm sure some purists will be horrified by that because I've probably ruined my paint, but no, I haven't really noticed anything. It works fine. So anyway, now I touched only the last 1/3 of the brush with paint. It's unthinned straight from the bottle so that it keeps its lines. I'm now going to enhance the separations so that the khaki to plague brown is covered with the dark brown, burnt, charred brown color to create these stripes. Now, all the colors will be altered later with the wash, so it'll look better than this. Especially the plague brown, you can kind of see through it because I made it intentionally thinned. That's fine. So anyway, and I'm going to just continue running up the spiral. You can see here that even this straight brown was not quite thick enough, and it's running a little bit. And I may touch that up later, or depending on how it looks, I may just leave it. But anyway, I'm trying to make sure you get all the transitions. You don't want to have a khaki to plague brown edge anywhere. So it just doesn't look that good. So anyway, now you can see I'm just kind of doing the final details, trying to show you as many brush strokes as possible so you've kind of seen the entire thing. This is all at 2x speed, so it'll take you twice as long to paint as I've shown you here, plus the probably roughly 30% of the brush strokes that I have had to delete in order to stay under the 15-minute standard video limit. Here I'm just kind of crudely putting these dark brown lines down. Again, this will be cleaned up later with the wash. I don't even have to really do anything to the paint itself. The wash will do most of the work. So anyway, I'm just kind of finishing off the transitions. There's a couple spots I forgot down here on the foot. So make sure you don't leave out any transitions. And this is starting to get done. I'm going to try to merge some of these arm spirals to the spirals that ran up from the leg up the torsos. Sometimes you can get them to match up or meld together up in the shoulders and the head. Okay, this is probably approaching final. You can see how I'm bracing my hand against the paint holder, the painting holder, with one finger. That gives me finer brush control. You don't really need to do that, but especially for these fine separator lines. Okay, now here I'm kind of cleaning off my brush. And now this is going to be a quick montage on constructing a base using Lustrian Undergrowth and plastic wood and some ink stains, game inks black and brown. So it turns out this plastic wood is kind of viscous and kind of partly solid, but if you add a little bit of game ink brown and equal parts black to it, a few drops, you can just add until you like the color. It doesn't really matter. You're not really ever going to see this color anyway because it's going to be painted over with the Lustrian Undergrowth, but it's a good backing color to make it earth color. And now I'm going to put this mud down. The ink causes the plastic wood to flow more easily. And now I'm going to wipe off a little bit with a towel off the foot where it just kind of got on the foot a little bit. I'm going to keep some of it because it looks like a dirt on the foot. It actually kind of looks neat later on. It kind of looks as if your mech has been walking around and stomping around in dirt. So anyway, now here I've done this, and there it is. Now I'm going to do the final wash using Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to use a relatively large brush, kind of a low quality brush. And now I'm just going to soak everything in this Agrax Earthshade. And it will definitely change the color, especially of the plague brown a little bit. And it'll bring out the lines and panels a little more. I won't bother dry brushing and highlighting on top of this because that takes a long time and you have to be careful. And again, if you're not trying to become a painter, then it's sort of a waste because you get most of the appearance from this already and it's already good enough. So this is sort of like the last steps here, and that's it. You're done. Atlas is ready.
If you enjoyed this video, please go hit the subscribe button at the and that way I'll be motivated to make even more videos.